Hey, future biologists. Welcome to a deep dive into photosynthesis, specifically for you guys in Mr. Martin's IB Bio class.
Right.
We're going to cover everything you need to know for that upcoming test
Yeah,
and hopefully make it pretty fun along the way.
definitely.
We might even uncover some cool stuff that's not on the syllabus. Who knows?
I think we will.
You know, when I think of energy, I picture lightning bolts
Yeah.
or roaring fire.
Yeah.
But with photosynthesis, it's like plants are harnessing this invisible energy source, light, and turning it into solid, tangible stuff like the food we eat.
Yeah, it's really mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
For sure.
We just kind of take it for granted. Like a plant just grows there.
Yeah.
But but it is really remarkable.
So how does it actually work? I mean, what's the equation behind this plant magic?
Okay, so you're probably familiar with the basic formula for photosynthesis.
Yeah.
Water plus carbon dioxide plus light energy yields glucose plus oxygen plus water.
Right.
But here's a little secret that might surprise you. Okay.
The oxygen we breathe, the very air we depend on,
Yeah.
actually comes from splitting water molecules, not from the CO2.
Wait, really? I always thought it was the CO2 that was being broken apart to release that oxygen.
Yeah, it's a common misconception. But think about it.
Yeah.
Plants need hydrogen to build those sugary glucose molecules.
Right.
Where's the best place to snag that hydrogen?
Water.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
They split those H2O molecules, grab the hydrogen, and release the leftover oxygen as a byproduct. It's kind of like they're exhaling oxygen.
Wow, that's so cool. So they're like little water splitting machines creating the oxygen we breathe as like a side effect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
But how do they even capture sunlight in the first place? I mean, do they have like tiny solar panels or something?
Well, you're not too far off.
Okay.
They have these incredible molecules called pigments,
Okay.
and the most famous one being chlorophyll.
These pigments act like antennas, each tuned to absorb specific wavelengths of light. They soak up mostly blues and reds, which is why plants reflect green light back to us. That's the color they don't use.
So that's why leaves look green. It's all the light they're rejecting.
Exactly.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Now, these pigments aren't just scattered randomly. They're organized into these super efficient structures called photosystems.
Okay.
Imagine them like those solar panel arrays you mentioned, but on a microscopic level, embedded in the thylakoid membranes of chloroplasts. They're like tiny power stations inside the plant cell,
Wow.
capturing light and using its energy to energize electrons.
So now we have all these excited electrons buzzing around inside the plant. What happens next? How does all that energy actually turn into something useful?
Well, those energized electrons are the key players in what we call the light reactions. Think of it like a relay race, where those electrons get passed from one molecule to another, releasing a bit of energy at each handoff. This energy is used to power the production of two very important molecules, ATP, which is like the cell's energy currency,
Right.
and NADPH, a source of reducing power that's essential for building stuff.
It's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Light energizes electrons, and then those electrons power the production of ATP and NADPH.
Exactly.
But don't plants have more than one type of pigment? What's the advantage of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're right, they do. Having a variety of pigments, like carotenoids, is like having a diverse investment portfolio. It spreads the risk. These different pigments can absorb a wider range of light wavelengths, meaning plants can capture more energy overall, even in different environments or as the seasons change.
That's so smart. So they're maximizing their energy intake by being adaptable.
Exactly.
But we've been talking a lot about energy, and I'm still a little bit fuzzy on how we get from light and energized electrons to actual glucose, the sugar that fuels life.
Well, that's where the Calvin cycle comes in. It's like the construction crew of photosynthesis, using the energy from those light reactions,
Okay.
or ATP and NADPH, to build the building blocks of life.
Okay. I'm ready to put on my hard hat and dive into the Calvin cycle construction zone.
All right, let's do it. All right, so let's grab those metaphorical hard hats and head into that Calvin cycle construction zone.
Okay.
But first, I think we should probably take a closer look at those photosystems.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just passively soaking up sunlight. They're really sophisticated nanomachines.
Nanomachines. That sounds pretty high tech.
Yeah, it is. They're like these tiny little antenna arrays specifically designed to capture photons of light and convert that energy into a form usable by the plant.
Wow.
And they're embedded within those thylakoid membranes we talked about.
Okay.
And each photosystem has two key components: the antenna complex and the reaction center.
Okay, so the antenna complex, that where all those colorful pigments hang out.
Yeah, Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It's like a bustling marketplace packed with chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and those carotenoids we mentioned.
Right.
Each pigment is absorbing a slightly different range of wavelength.
Okay.
So it's like having a diverse team of solar panel experts, each capturing a different slice of the sunlight spectrum,
Okay.
and they all work together to funnel that absorbed light energy towards the reaction center.
So it's a carefully choreographed dance with all those pigments working together to gather as much energy as possible
Yeah.
from the sunlight hitting the leaf.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens when all that energy reaches the reaction center? Does it just explode with excitement?
It's more like a controlled burst of energy.
Yeah.
The reaction center is where the real magic happens. It contains a special pair of chlorophyll molecules that act like the heart of the photosystem.
Okay.
When the energy from all those absorbed photons reaches the reaction center, it excites these special chlorophyll molecules, causing them to lose electrons.
So it's like a chain reaction. The antenna pigments pass the energy buck along until it reaches the reaction center, and boom, those electrons get supercharged.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But what happens to those energized electrons?
No.
Do they just zoom around randomly, causing chaos?
Not at all.
Okay.
Those energized electrons are picked up by electron carrier molecules
Okay.
and whisked away on a wild ride through what we call an electron transport chain.
Okay.
Think of it like a bucket brigade, with each carrier molecule passing the electron along, releasing a little bit of that precious energy at each step.
And that released energy, that's what's used to do work, right? Like pump those
Right.
protons across the membrane to create that gradient we talked about.
Exactly. You got it. We're trying to create that energy imbalance, that potential energy stored in that proton gradient. And as the electrons flow through the chain, their energy is used to pump protons from the stroma.
Okay.
That's the fluid-filled space outside the thylakoid into the thylakoid lumen, the space inside.
Yeah.
It's kind of like pumping water uphill, creating that potential energy that can be harnessed later.
So it's all about creating a difference in proton concentration across that membrane,
Right.
like water behind a dam, ready to rush through and spin those turbines.
Yeah.
Or in this case, power that amazing enzyme ATP synthase.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy.
And that flow of protons back across the membrane through ATP synthase is what generates ATP, the fuel that powers so many cellular processes.
Yay.
It's mind-blowing how this intricate machinery captures the energy of sunlight and converts it into a form that the cell can actually use.
It really is. It's a testament to the power of evolution.
And speaking of intricate machinery, we've been talking about photosystems plural. Does that mean there's more than one type?
You're catching on quickly. There are actually two main types of photosystems, photosystem 2 and photosystem IS.
Okay.
And they work together in this beautifully orchestrated sequence, kind of like a relay race, to power the light reactions of photosynthesis.
Okay, so what's the difference between those two photosystems? What makes them unique?
Well, think of them as specialized teams, each with its own superpower.
Okay.
Photosystem 2 is the one that steps up to the plate first.
Okay.
It's responsible for splitting water molecules, a process we call photolysis, which, remember, is where that oxygen we breathe comes from.
Right.
Photosystem 2 absorbs light energy, primarily at a wavelength of 680 nanometers, hence the name P680.
Got it.
That energy is used to energize electrons, which then get passed down that electron transport chain that we were just talking about,
Right.
eventually ending up at photosystem I.
So photosystem 2 is like the initiator, grabbing light, splitting water, sending those energized electrons on their way.
Yeah, exactly.
What about photosystem I? What's its role in this relay race of energy?
Photosystem I is like the closer,
Okay.
the one that brings it all home.
Okay, quick interlude from Mr. Martin here. It's not photosystem I, it's photosystem 1. However, it's really difficult to try and change one small word and make it sound good. So remember, photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, bizarrely, photosystem 2 comes first and then it's photosystem 1. Okay, continue your listening.
It absorbs light at a slightly longer wavelength, 700 nanometers, hence P700.
Okay.
And it re-energizes those electrons it receives from photosystem 2, giving them that final boost before they're used to reduce NADP plus to NADPH.
Wait, NADP plus pro?
Yeah.
That rings a bell. Isn't that related to NADPH, that important energy carrier molecule we talked about earlier?
You've got a great memory. Remember, NADPH is a crucial ingredient in the Calvert cycle.
Right.
It's a source of reducing power, kind of like a delivery truck carrying high-energy electrons to the construction site where glucose is being built.
Right.
And photosystem I plays a critical role in creating that NADPH, ensuring the Calvin cycle has the resources it needs.
So to recap, The light reactions are all about capturing light energy,
Yeah.
using it to energize electrons,
Yeah.
and then channeling that energy to create ATP and NADPH, the fuel and building materials for the Calvin cycle.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much is happening in those tiny thylakoids.
Yeah, and here's another fascinating tidbit. Plants can actually fine-tune how much ATP and NADPH they produce depending on their needs.
Really?
They can switch between two types of electron flow, non-cyclic and cyclic photophosphorylation.
Hold on, two types of electron flow. It sounds like plants have a backup plan in case they need to adjust their energy production strategy.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So how do they do that?
So non-cyclic photophosphorylation is the standard pathway we've been discussing.
Okay.
Electrons flow from water to photosystem 2 to photosystem I, and finally to NADP, plus creating both ATP and NADPH along the way.
Okay.
But sometimes the plant needs more ATP than NADPH.
So it's like adjusting the recipe, so to speak. More ATP, less NADPH.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, how does the plant do that?
That's where cyclic photophosphorylation comes in. It's kind of like a shortcut in the electron transport chain.
Okay.
Instead of those energized electrons from photosystem are going to make NADPH, they kind of loop back to earlier parts of the chain.
Okay.
And this allows for continued proton pumping and ATP production without generating more NADPH.
So it's like a bypass route, focusing on ATP production when needed. It's incredible how adaptable plants are.
It really is. This ability to fine-tune the production of ATP and NADPH ensures that the plant always has the right energy balance to meet its needs, even in changing environments. It's like having a built-in energy regulator, making sure the lights stay on and the factories keep running smoothly.
Wow, so much is happening in those tiny thylakoids. It's like a bustling city with energy flowing through a complex network of power grids and factories, all orchestrated by those amazing photosystems.
And all of this intricate dance of electrons and pigments and enzymes sets the stage for the main event, the Calvin cycle, where those raw materials are transformed into the building blocks of life.
Okay, I'm ready to leave the bustling city of the light reactions and head to the construction site of the Calvin cycle. Let's see how those sugars get built.
All right, let's go.
Right, we've got our hard hats and our safety goggles, and we're fully stocked with ATP and NADPH from those light reactions.
Yeah.
It's time to see how the Calvin cycle actually puts all that energy to work. Let's build some sugar.
It's amazing to think that this entire process, this molecular construction project that is happening all around us right now, in every green leaf and blade of grass, it's like nature's own hidden factory.
It really is when you think about it that way. So where does all this take place? Are we still in those thylakoid membranes?
Not quite. We're switching gears now, moving from those bustling energy centers of the thylakoids to the wide open spaces of the stroma. That's the fluid-filled region outside the thylakoids.
Oh.
It's here in this molecular workshop that the Calvin cycle takes center stage.
So it's like we're moving from the power plant to the factory floor. What's the first step in this sugar building process?
Well, Calvin cycle is all about taking inorganic carbon from the atmosphere, that's CO2, and incorporating it into organic molecules.
Okay.
This crucial first step is called carbon fixation, and it's all thanks to our superstar enzyme, Rubisco.
Rubisco, it's back for an encore. I think you mentioned before that this is the most abundant enzyme on Earth. So what does Rubisco actually do with that CO2 it captures?
Well, Rubisco is like the master craftsman. It takes that raw material, CO2, and combines it with a 5-carbon sugar called ribulose bisphosphate, or RoBP.
Okay.
This creates a 6-carbon compound that immediately splits into 2 molecules of a 3-carbon sugar called 3-phosphoglycerate, or 3-PGA for short.
Okay, so one CO2 molecule goes in, gets attached to RuBP, and then splits into 2 3-carbon molecules.
Right.
That's how that inorganic carbon gets woven into the fabric of life.
Exactly. But those 3-PGA molecules aren't quite ready to be used as building blocks yet. They need a little makeover, a bit of energetic sprucing up.
And that's where our powerhouses from the light reactions ATP and NADPH come into play.
You got it. It's like having a team of skilled artisans refining those raw materials into something much more usable.
Cool. So what happens during this molecular makeover?
Well, each 3-PGA molecule receives a phosphate group from ATP, becoming 1-phenol-3 bisphosphoglycerate. Then NADPH steps in, donating electrons, and the molecule loses a phosphate group, transforming into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or G3P for short.
Okay, so with a little help from ATP and NADPH, those 3 carbon molecules get transformed into G3P. What's so special about G3P? Is this the final product?
G3P is kind of like the versatile building block of the plant world.
Okay.
It's a key branching point in the Calvin cycle. Some of it is siphoned off to build glucose, the ultimate sugar prize of photosynthesis.
Right.
But most of the G3P goes through a series of reactions to regenerate that starting molecule ρBP, ensuring that the cycle can continue.
So it was like a carefully choreographed dance with some G3P heading off to build sugars and some going back to keep the cycle spinning. It's all about balance and sustainability.
Exactly. It's a truly remarkable system. For every 6 molecules of CO2 fixed by Rubisco, 1 molecule of glucose can be produced.
Wow.
The other 5 G3P molecules get recycled back into 3 molecules of ρBP, ready to grab more CO2 and keep the cycle going.
It's incredible how everything is interconnected. It takes 6 turns of the cycle to produce 1 molecule of glucose. That's a lot of work.
It is.
But I guess the payoff is pretty sweet, literally.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just about sweetness, that glucose is the foundation for all the carbohydrates the plant needs.
Right.
Starch for energy storage, cellulose for structural support, and countless other organic molecules.
And so it all comes back to that simple sugar molecule. But what about other essential building blocks? Can plants make things like proteins and lipids from photosynthesis?
Oh, you bet they can. While glucose is the primary product, the Calvin cycle isn't just a one-trick pony. It produces intermediates that can be used to build a whole array of molecules.
Wow.
G3P, for example, can be used to synthesize amino acids, the building blocks of proteins.
Right.
And with the help of mineral nutrients absorbed from the soil, plants can create a dazzling diversity of organic molecules, all starting with those products of photosynthesis.
So photosynthesis provides the raw ingredients, and then the plants, like a master chef, use those ingredients to create a gourmet feast of different molecules. That's pretty amazing.
It really is.
Well, this has been an incredible journey exploring the intricate world of photosynthesis, from capturing those fleeting photons of sunlight to building the essential sugars that fuel life. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the plants around us.
Me too. And I have a feeling you're going to ace Mr. Martin's test.
Fingers crossed.
Remember, understanding photosynthesis isn't just about memorizing facts and equations. It's about appreciating the beauty and ingenuity of this process that sustains us all.
That's a great point. And that's a wrap for today's deep dive into photosynthesis. Huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this incredible journey. And to all you future biologists out there, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the fascinating world of biology, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. Until next time, keep those neurons firing.